it's like another way to appreciate
Yeah.
the physical, I guess, what would you call it? the detritus, you know, the trash of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like a very old idea of industrial music, you know, of taking objects from the city and then making a soundtrack to the city from them. So I think we're not doing anything new. We're following in a long-standing tradition of, you know.
Yeah.
And why are you not, I mean, the classical way would be to use these found objects as instruments and play them. This is the classical way, right? It doesn't have to be a cello, it can also be a piece of metal, but you record it. Why do you record it and don't just play objects?
Well,
I do both.
yes.
Right.
It's a way to have this interactive workshop where people can discover the sounds themselves of these objects. The loop station is a way to have a kind of composition that will be made by the participants themselves, and we could help them discover things about these objects, ways of manipulating, of touching things. That's the idea, and I think it's inviting for many people to work with their hands instead of just talk about abstract concepts. I feel you said instruments. I feel I had this image of a kind of hidden instrument in the city, and you have to discover it and put it together. It's already there, and you only have to find it.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
And the recording you can also slow down, loop, whatever.
Sure, that's another step.
That's where the music concrete part comes in, I guess.
Yeah.
The re-editing and re-sequencing of events and manipulation of textures, either through like using external effects or tape techniques or digital techniques.
You have all these kinds of technical devices from different epochs, so maybe all of them add something new or something else to the original sound.
The however you record a sound will inevitably affect the sound. So like the recording of the sound is not the sound, right? The original sound. So if you record on the tape, you're going to lose certain frequencies, or you'll have a certain the textures will appear differently than they do with the human ear, and that's a very big theme for me in my work of something that you hear something and you like half recognize it, but you're not really sure where it stems from, and like having a sense of mystery about that is important.
Yeah. Yeah, we are not working with, we are not radio play composers. Somebody asked me, do people recognize the sounds you collect in the cities? And I said, no, that's not the point. We just use it as a source material to make more, let's say, abstract soundscapes.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's like we're making a movie about the city, and it's the soundtrack to that movie about our personal experience of the city.
Yeah. So you have different ways to collect sounds, like with found objects or with field recordings. You have another aspect is the devices you record it with, a smartphone or fancy technical devices or contact microphones. or old-fashioned manual recorders where I work with again. And that will also, that is already the start of reworking the sounds. Then there's another step, and that's really the manipulating with the source material. And indeed, we have these different devices.
Like you put two sounds together that you record at different times, and you make a new recording. And oftentimes, as a result of that, it's really hard to distinguish what is what, depending on the device that you recorded onto, or the volume levels of each input.
That's composing effects. Right.
More or less.
So you relate yourself to the situationists as well. How come?
I don't drink that much.
I do.
On some level, like, counter to what our society dictates.
Sure, in maybe a small way. I think for me, definitely, it's kind of a resistance to the way I feel I'm supposed to exist in society or in a city.
Efficiency, getting somewhere.
Productivity, everything. The way that time is perceived, the way people can become easily separated from each other because you have this situation you're always in, usually guided by capital and the need to produce and to consume. So I think, the little bit of theory that I've read, I understand some of it. A lot of it is confusing, but I think the practical, playful kinds of approaches, like cutting up maps and things like that, I think that's very, just to have that, to be in that mind frame where you're constantly trying to get better at wandering, discovering, listening, getting better at all those things. To me, that's what we should all be doing, like working on being able to be someplace where we're uncomfortable usually, and be okay having a conversation with somebody that you normally don't. That's to me, that's a little bit similar to trying to discover, magical, something that I might perceive in some object or something like that. It's all related, so it's definitely
and it's
important.
everyday culture also. You are in the city in an everyday situation if you want. It's nothing artificial or whatever, but then you choose what you take out of it, and you are not dominated. Many people would say, okay, the sound of a plane or the sound of a car, of a tram is not beautiful, it's noise, we don't like it, and it's kind of prescribed by society, how you kind of perceive that, but still, it's part of our everyday, the perception that we have in every second, and you can use it no matter if it's meant to be beautiful. In
right.
How people say
you
it.
can
This
transform it.
This is what art's been doing since Dada, is been trying to break down division between art and life, right? That's how I see the overall arc of art in the last century, is or at least on the avant-garde spectrum, is how do we connect art back to life?
And give the power of being an artist to everybody.
Yeah,
Also,
take art out of the gallery.
So you're not have to be a specialist to do that.
Yeah.
That's literature.
Okay. Next thing.
What?
Next thing.
Next question.
Yeah, what's the
I
next?
can't.
What's the next thing on our agenda?
Cut up techniques. That's also interesting element of what we do, I guess. Besides technique, there's also the industrial movement, I could say, that is not part of art history officially, the visual arts, but is, I think it's still regarded as subculture, industrial music, as it was in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, one figure was important, that there was William Burroughs, the writer, who kind of more or less systematically used the cut-up technique. It was at first born out of the situation where he collected his unfinished writings and unorganized bunch of paper that was published as Naked Lunch, and I think that was part of his attempt to deconstruct language and also to discover a kind of secret layer underneath the usual language, kind of similar. I see now as psychogeography, but it is applied to language.
Mm-hmm. Language is a virus.
Yeah, indeed. So he tried to escape the functionality of language by cutting it literally into pieces and putting them together again. So you have this really new way of applying the visual collage technique to literature. He used his own material for that, but also other people's material. He used also tape manipulation. He used tape recorders, old-fashioned reel-to-reel tape, because it was the devices of his area in the 50s, and also experimented with these devices to you could question what the importance is of using that technique, and if indeed new things can be discovered. I think for me, yes, because you can find new combinations that you cannot think of.
Like the permutative poems. The permutative poems like Kick That Habit Man,
Yeah.
like stuff like
Yeah.
that. Or, I also think it's really important to differentiate between like what Burroughs was doing with tape as opposed to the music concrete people.
Yes.
Because like Burroughs has this phrase of like forcing the hand of chance. And so he would just randomly rewind back onto the tape that he'd recorded